Pride. Pride is the belief that self stands above all else. It twists confidence into superiority and independence from God. In Christian doctrine, pride is called the root of all sin because it begins where trust in God ends. Scripture traces its origin to Lucifer's fall in Isaiah 14, when he exalted himself above the heavens, and to Adam and Eve's choice to become like God. Pride reappears whenever a person assumes authority that belongs only to the Creator. It hides in ambition, in refusal to admit fault, and in the quiet belief that others exist to serve one's image. Proverbs 16:18 warns that pride precedes destruction because it blinds the heart to correction. The cure is humility, seeing all gifts as given, not earned. Humility expresses itself through apology, service, and gratitude, restoring perspective where pride distorts it. Pride divides, humility reconciles both soul and relationship. Envy. Envy is the resentment of another's blessings. It goes beyond simple desire, turning admiration into bitterness and gratitude into complaint. In Scripture, the story of Cain and Abel reveals envy's destructive nature. Cain's jealousy over God's favor consumed him until he shed his brother's blood. Proverbs 14:30 warns that envy rots the bones because it eats away at peace from within. Theologically, envy denies God's goodness by suggesting he has withheld something we deserve. It drives comparison, rivalry, and quiet hatred, turning others' success into a source of pain. In modern life, envy thrives through constant exposure to others' achievements, possessions, and appearances, often intensified by social media. The cure is love and gratitude. Love rejoices in another's good, and gratitude redirects focus toward what has already been given. Practicing contentment, celebrating others, and resisting comparison are how the heart overcomes envy's corrosion. Wrath. Wrath is anger that has broken restraint. It transforms justified emotion into destructive force, seeking punishment rather than justice. Scripture warns that human anger does not produce righteousness, as James writes, because wrath assumes the role of God as judge. The story of Cain's rage in Genesis and countless later examples reveal how fury, once uncontained, leads to harm and regret. Wrath manifests not only in violent outbursts but in bitterness, resentment, or words meant to wound. In modern life, it shows up in road rage, online hostility, and the refusal to forgive. Though anger itself can be moral when directed against injustice, wrath becomes sin when it controls action or intention. Its cure is patience and forgiveness, deliberately pausing before reacting, surrendering vengeance, and choosing reconciliation over retaliation. Wrath burns bridges, mercy and restraint rebuild them. Sloth. Sloth is more than laziness. It is the spiritual and moral refusal to act on what is good. In Christian teaching, sloth, often linked to the Greek term acedia, is a weariness of the soul that resists prayer, duty, and love. It is not mere rest, but neglect of purpose. Proverbs 19:15 warns that laziness brings deep sleep and hunger, both physical and spiritual. In Jesus' parable of the talents, the servant who buried his gift was condemned not for rebellion, but for inaction. Sloth erodes the will quietly through distraction, avoidance, and endless comfort-seeking. Today, it hides in procrastination, overindulgence in entertainment, and apathy toward faith or service. Its danger lies in wasted potential, the good left undone. The antidote is diligence rooted in love, steady prayer, disciplined effort, and mindful engagement with responsibilities. Sloth decays purpose, diligence restores it. Greed. Greed is the excessive desire for wealth, status, or possession, often pursued at the expense of others. In Christian doctrine, it is not simply wanting more, it is trusting material gain over God's provision. Jesus warned against greed through the parable of the rich man in Luke 12, who built larger barns to hoard wealth but lost his life that very night. Scripture reminds that whoever loves money never has enough, revealing greed's endless hunger. It shifts the heart's security from faith to accumulation, convincing us that satisfaction lies in ownership. Modern greed appears in corporate corruption, exploitation, or quiet obsession with consumption and self-advancement. Its power lies in subtle idolatry, the worship of possession. The cure is generosity and contentment, giving freely, setting limits on consumption, and remembering that everything held is a trust, not a trophy. Greed enslaves, generosity liberates. Gluttony. Gluttony is the excessive indulgence in food, drink, or any pleasure that begins to master the person rather than serve them. Scripture cautions in Proverbs 23 not to join those who gorge themselves, and in Philippians chapter 3 it describes those whose God is their stomach. Christian teaching views gluttony as idolatry of appetite, allowing desire for comfort or pleasure to override self-control. Esau's decision to sell his birthright for a meal in Genesis illustrates how unchecked craving can trade lasting worth for momentary satisfaction. In modern times, gluttony extends beyond the table. Binge consumption of entertainment, endless scrolling, or compulsive spending stem from the same restless hunger. The danger lies in seeking fullness through excess instead of meaning through discipline. The cure is temperance and gratitude, eating and living with mindfulness, practicing fasting, and recognizing that true satisfaction comes from God, not indulgence. Lust. Lust is the disordered craving for sexual pleasure detached from love, covenant, and respect for others. It distorts one of God's good gifts by reducing people to objects of gratification. Jesus taught that lust begins in the heart before any outward act, emphasizing that purity is first a matter of thought and intent. The story of David and Bathsheba in 2 Samuel chapter 11 shows its progression, from a glance to obsession, deceit, and destruction. Lust thrives when desire is indulged without discipline, promising freedom but producing shame and brokenness. In modern life, it is normalized through pornography, casual sex, and entertainment that trivializes intimacy. Theologically, lust corrupts love by seeking pleasure without commitment and intimacy without responsibility. Its cure is purity and self-control, training the mind to guard the eyes, resist temptation, and honor others as image-bearers of God. Vanity. Vanity is the obsession with appearance, reputation, or achievement, placing personal image above substance and truth. In Christian thought, it is a branch of pride that measures worth through the eyes of others rather than in God's sight. Ecclesiastes repeatedly calls human pursuits vanity, meaning emptiness or vapor, to show how fragile external glory truly is. Vanity drives a person to live for approval, crafting perfection while neglecting character. In modern life, it appears through the constant need for validation on social media, status symbols, or even spiritual pride masked as virtue. Its danger lies in self-deception. The pursuit of admiration replaces genuine growth. Scripture teaches that beauty fades and recognition passes, but integrity endures. The cure for vanity is sincerity, choosing authenticity over image, humility over self-display, and inner virtue over outward impression. Neglect. Neglect is the failure to do what is right, to care where duty calls, or to act when responsibility demands it. In Christian theology, neglect is a sin of omission, wrong not because of what is done, but because of what is left undone. Jesus illustrated this in the parable of the Good Samaritan, where religious figures passed by the wounded man, failing to show mercy. Neglect stems from indifference, distraction, or fear of inconvenience. It damages relationships, weakens conscience, and withholds love that could heal or restore. In daily life, neglect appears when compassion is withheld, promises are ignored, or spiritual life is left unattended. Scripture warns that faith without works is dead, reminding believers that care requires action. The remedy is attentiveness, seeing needs, responding promptly, and remembering that small acts of responsibility reflect obedience. Arrogance. Arrogance is inflated self-importance, the conviction that one's opinions, power, or worth stand above correction or accountability. It is closely related to pride but distinct in its expression. Where pride exalts the self inwardly, arrogance displays that superiority outwardly. Scripture warns repeatedly against the arrogant heart. Proverbs 8:13 declares that God hates pride and arrogance. And in Daniel chapter 4, King Nebuchadnezzar's downfall reveals how arrogance invites humiliation. Arrogance blinds reason, hardens empathy, and silences humility, leading people to treat others as lesser or irrelevant. In modern life, it manifests in dismissive attitudes, intellectual snobbery, and the refusal to listen or apologize. Spiritually, arrogance rejects dependence on God and isolates the soul within its own ego. The antidote is teachability, acknowledging limits, seeking counsel, and valuing others' wisdom. Arrogance closes the heart, humility reopens it to truth and grace. Intolerance. Intolerance is the unwillingness to respect, understand, or show mercy toward those who differ in belief, background, or behavior. In Christian ethics, it violates the command to love one's neighbor, reducing people to categories rather than recognizing them as image bearers of God. Throughout Scripture, Jesus consistently crossed social, ethnic, and moral boundaries to extend compassion to Samaritans, tax collectors, and sinners alike. Intolerance stems from fear, pride, or moral superiority, convincing individuals that purity depends on exclusion. It breeds division, prejudice, and spiritual blindness, replacing conviction with contempt. In today's world, intolerance appears in hatred disguised as righteousness, online hostility, or silent dismissal of those who disagree. Its danger lies in self-deception, believing one defends truth while violating love. The cure is empathy guided by conviction, holding firm beliefs without denying others' dignity. Intolerance hardens hearts, compassion restores them. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more controversial scripture topics. Check out our other videos. Thanks for watching.